for many of us who are watching, might be the most important session. K-12 education is top of mind, not just for parents, but future parents, for grandparents, for aunts and uncles. They want to ensure that our kids can be best prepared for college, trade school, whatever's next. And that K-12 education is going to be critical to that. We all understand that our reading and literacy scores here in Michigan aren't where they want to be or aren't where we want them. But there's no shortage of people who are working together to make that happen. So for our last panel tonight, I want to recognize Vanessa Keesler from Launch Michigan, a great nonprofit organization that has been working across the aisle to find solutions that everybody can and should be able to get behind. She's joined by Senator Dayna Polehanki from Livonia, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee and also a former teacher, so has a keen insight into what's going on in the classroom and what the solutions may be. So Paul, take it away. We look forward to this conversation.
Brett, thank you very much, and good afternoon to both of you.
Good afternoon.
Senator, I want to start with you. How did we get where we are? And then, of course, the follow-up is how do we get out of this situation, but how has Michigan sunk so low in education?
Well, I'm going to reject part of the premise, and that is grade 4 reading specifically has been stagnant. I saw former Governor Snyder over there. That's as far back as our NAEP scores, the national scorecard, goes to the beginning of his administration. And our scores have stayed relatively stagnant, where other states have shown improvements. So when you get to grade 8 and the math, we see a different story. So all of education isn't in the crapper.
Right.
It's grade 4 reading where we're struggling a little bit. That's what happened. And since I'm a Democrat, and we enjoyed 2 years of a Democratic trifecta in which we passed legislation for dyslexia kids, but not just for dyslexic kids, that is going to completely overhaul how we teach reading in the early grades. Reading is a science. It's phonics based. You and I, and maybe you, Vanessa, learn to read based on phonics. We got away from that for a couple decades, and it didn't work. So we're going back to phonics-based instruction, and we're doing things like lowering class sizes in K-3 schools, especially in high poverty districts. So they have no more than 17 or 18 kids in a classroom for a teacher. So these are proven, whole-scale, systemic approaches that I believe it'll take some time, but that are going to completely transform those particular scores that we want to see improve.
Vanessa, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I appreciate everything Senator Polehanki just brought up and the work that the state has done around literacy. I think that the focus on the focus we've just shifted to with the right training for all teachers. One of the things that Michigan has a problem with at the education level is we have a system level problem. And we've heard about it a lot here at the conference. It's been brought up. It's not a people problem. The educators are working really hard, but our system has made some choices over the past 20, 30 years that have not helped us escalate. So one is making sure that we invest in and focus on literacy. And again, we've made I think we're poised to accelerate. The other thing Launch Michigan really points out is we need to rethink what it means to graduate from a K-12 system in Michigan. Our standards are preparing kids maybe for the jobs of the past, not the jobs of the future. And we know that kids are disconnected, they're disengaged, and they're not ready for their next steps. But we can shift. We can identify those future-ready skills. We can commit to that as a state. It's a bipartisan issue. I've heard everybody at the conference talking about it. So the time is now for us to set that new goal for every Michigan student and, make those changes.
There's also the issue of accountability. How do we measure how successful a school or a teacher or a student is? And is that something that needs to be addressed, Senator?
I think we over-test students. If you have a kid in school, they're doing their NWA testing 3 times a year. And then if they're in 11th grade, they're doing as much as 31 hours of testing. It's too much. I'll say this right now, it's a little bit controversial, but I wouldn't mind phasing the M step out and using our very good benchmark assessments that the Read by Grade 3 law requires that we use, like things like NWA testing, iReady, there's different brands. So the accountability and the data is better than we've ever had before. We have a parent dashboard that was created with parents in mind, and parents have access to how their schools are doing. We've got a strong, still robust teacher evaluation system. So the accountability is strong. I will reject a premise that says it's not. If anything, we need to phase out some of the testing that is not having the results we need.
Yeah. Your thoughts on that, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think accountability is can be such a difficult conversation. And Dr. Vitti said on the stage yesterday, for every kind of ounce of accountability, you need an ounce of support. And Michigan hasn't always done that. Sometimes we've had 20 ounces of accountability and 0 ounces of support. But you can't have support without accountability. And so again, kind of thinking about systems, we also have historically held teachers accountable and schools accountable, but we haven't asked what's the state's responsibility? What is the department's responsibility? What is business doing? What is philanthropy doing? So if we're going to transform our system, we need a broader reciprocal accountability framework that makes sure all those supports are in place and we agree on the goals we're getting to. We have also had a lot of moving targets about what goal we're trying to get to, so it's hard to show success when you're not sure what you're shooting for. So I think if we could pick some clear goals and name them and then say what's everybody's responsibility at every layer of the system. Education is a statewide issue. It's not just for educators. It's a talent issue. It's a parent issue. It's a community issue. But we often don't include all those stakeholders in the accountability. We make it only about teachers or about leaders, and it's really on all of us as Michiganders.
You look at other states that have improved their scores. Mississippi has come up quite often as one that went from worst, not worst to first, but certainly in the top 10. How can Michigan replicate that, or do we need to try and replicate what other states are doing?
You have to be careful when you take a look at state scores. It kind of sticks in my craw a little bit. The states who have a 3rd grade read or flunk law, which I personally repealed the flunking portion of it. All the studies prove that it doesn't work long term. What it does do is takes your worst readers out of the testing system and gives them a bunch of literacy supports. So the low readers are being held back from 4th grade. So what you see is, I think, inflated test scores sometimes because the low readers were held back. It's a gaming of the testing system. So there's that most people aren't aware of. But longitudinally, I don't know how I got on the read or flunk portion of the 3rd grade reading law, doesn't work.
Yeah.
So right now, what we did is we kept all the literacy supports for the 3rd grade reading law, got rid of the narrow read or flunk portion, and I think we're on the track to do some good stuff.
Yeah. The Mississippi Miracle, Michigan's doing a lot of pieces of it. The one thing that they're doing that we're not, I would say, but we are poised to with the most recent efforts is making sure instructional practice is shifting to that science of reading that the senator talked about, and that every elementary teacher is trained in that. So Mississippi requires training for every single elementary teacher. Michigan tends to be more, let everybody kind of do what they want. And this is one place where we need to get more specific. We know it works. We know we need it. It's what other states are doing. And it's a great model. I was with some teachers in Grand Rapids a couple weeks ago, and they said, I didn't ask, this was not a seed question. They said, I wish I was trained in science of reading or how to teach reading. I'm teaching 6th grade math, but my kids need help reading, and I don't have the skills. So it's one of our most powerful levers, and we can build on the investments, the infrastructure. There's a lot of good things. We should not discount, we should not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should not discount what Michigan's done in literacy. We should stay the course and add this focus on practice and training for educators.
Have we put too much emphasis on STEM and not enough on literacy?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we can do, it's all of the above.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned teachers. They're hardworking. I know a lot of teachers. Do we need to pay them more?
Absolutely. You know, we don't make a lot as a state senator, but I made more in this job with a somewhat modest salary for, you know, having a master's degree than I did after almost 20 years of teaching. So the pay is abysmal. It's hard to stay motivated. Had a lot of friends who were ship shoppers or auto mechanics or doing DoorDash or you know, painting during the summer, painting the schools. So no, we absolutely do not pay teachers what they're worth commensurate with their levels of education, most of whom have master's degrees.
Yeah, have to agree. That's another structural thing that Michigan faced in the last 15 years. We had a epidemic level of teacher shortage. It was a crisis, and part of that is you know, disinvestment from the profession, disrespect for the profession. So we've started. The state's made a lot of investments into getting people back into the pipeline, and we're seeing early results. Like we're starting to get more candidates, more people coming in, but we still have a retention problem. They are not staying, and we need them to stay. And we know that a huge factor for educators is pay. And if we value this as a position in our system, we need to increase our pay. And again, we can look at what other states, we can look at models, differentiated pay for high needs areas. There's really things that are working, but it is really important. They're our greatest source of talent in education, and we need to support them.
May I highlight something I'm really proud of? So Senator Camilleri and I have worked through the Senate's budget proposal, and in our proposal, there would be a $400 per pupil increase. Well, our budget mandates that 50% of that would have to be used, of the increase, would have to be used for teacher pay. Because I'm talking to my teachers at little events and things, and I'm like, how do you like that historic funding we've given you? And they're like, what funding? It hasn't reached the teachers' pockets yet. So we may have to be a little more heavy-handed with that. I think it's a great idea.
Well, it goes to show that there are a lot of needs in our schools, and
Correct.
so you can give a school more money, and they're not going to give it to the teachers not because they don't care about the teachers, but you know, they have to fix the leaky roof or, you know, improve the library or technology.
That's right.
Yeah. You sound a lot more optimistic about the state of education than what I've been hearing up here. How come?
Because I look at the scores and I understand how to read data. Let me just say something. When it bothers me when we say our third and fourth graders can't read. They can read. It's just they're tested on very complex, for them, texts, T-E-X-T-S. If you took the SAT right now, the reading version, you would not score 100%. I got one wrong when I took it. I'm an excellent reader. I have a master's degree in it. Anyone here would struggle because it's a very hard test, but you all know how to read. So there's a lot of a premise that I just don't agree with. The kids can read, okay, but the M-STEP especially is a tough test, and it measures proficiency. And you can't compare kids in the same year. Whereas something like the benchmark test that I said I'd like to see, you can compare kids to the rest of the country. You can find out their grade level with that. So I think the M-STEP has some limitations. But our kids, it's not that they can't read. Right. They can't read this water bottle. That's not accurate.
Where's your level of optimism?
I think it's really important to be honest about what we're not doing well in the system, and I think the conversation is broader than test scores.
Sure.
Again, we don't have a clear standard. We need to update what it means to graduate. Yeah. We need to fully and equitably fund the system, and we need to make sure everybody in the system is working toward the same goals. So those things can need work, and we don't have to be stuck in pessimism or the fights at the back. You know, we've heard up here a lot of call to bipartisanship. We're a purple state. We're get her done. You know, let's be about change. So I think we all are on board with we need to make some changes. I feel like I've been in state ed policy conversations for 20 years in this state, and there's more agreement that there's changes to be made and more agreement about what those changes are. So we should find the places we agree and make those changes and not get caught bickering about, how bad is it or how good could it be, but like let's do some practical changes, like the standard, like making sure teachers are trained, like fully funding the system.
What's your number one priority on that list of changes?
We made the science of reading into law, and my number one priority for this year is small classroom sizes for K through 3 kids.
Senator Vanessa, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.